Hello sweet friends, my name is Birdie and I am your friendly neighborhood forest witch, and in today's video I am going to be reviewing Mist-Filled Path by Frank McEwen. So if you're interested in picking up this book, I will leave a link down in the description. Definitely go check it out. Also, side note, it is the day of the solar eclipse, so if you see it getting dark, that is why. I thought it would be so magical to be outside with you all recording during this special moment in history. So that's what I'm doing. So without further ado, let's get into this review. When I chose this book for March's book review, I didn't realize how well this book would complement Entering Hecate's Cave, which was my last book review. And if you missed that one, I'll link it up above here and down in the description. Definitely go check that out because that book was also a good one. But similar to Entering Hecate's Cave, it delves into psychology, but instead of being heavy on the science aspect, like Entering Hecate's Cave, the Mist-Filled Path intertwines psychology with Celtic spirituality. One of my favorite parts of the book is that Frank discusses his experience with other religions and spiritualities, like growing up as a Methodist and then branching out into Buddhism and shamanism and the Native American spirit world, in addition to Celtic spirituality, and then goes into detail of his experience with each, which I really enjoyed reading about. Also, as the title suggests, mist is the main theme of this book, which is a threshold state in Celtic spirituality. But what does that mean? Well, we might think of mist as a sacrament in the old Catholic sense of the term, an outward sign of an interior state of grace. Now, as Frank explains, mist consciousness is Druid consciousness, saint consciousness, shaman consciousness, and Christ consciousness. It is the awareness and perspective of a person standing at the threshold of sacred experience. Now, the Celtic spirit, like the Celtic mind, does not want to get locked into a rigid framework with no way of escape. Like the mist, the spirit wants to shift, rise, disappear, and return. And personally, I can really resonate with this. Even growing up, I constantly felt like I was living in a cage, unable to be myself or break free from toxic familial ideals, religion, or even societal norms, which as a fellow witch, I'm sure most of you can relate to this as well. Then another large theme of this book is reclaiming ourselves and reconnecting with nature. For example, Frank writes, "The modern pace does not allow for such slowness and silence. Meditation or contemplation is often perceived as lifeless inactivity. Many people fear that slowing down will cause them to miss something, and yet it is our society's velocity that is causing us to miss something very important. Besides the attrition of what I call our otherworldly senses, we have also lost the ability to have a moment-to-moment awareness of our passage through life." Now, this speaks true, especially for me, especially during modern times. It's one of those things where life gets the best of us, I guess. We're filled up with all this stress, with going to work and doing things for our kids and for our friends and other family members, and we just lose track of the things that are really important to us. For me, living in a large city, especially in a state without mountains, unfortunately, I feel this disconnect seeping through my bones and into my core, and it eats at me mentally, emotionally, and physically every single day. So if you suffer from something similar to this like I do, Frank actually suggests ways of helping you through this darkness via Celtic spirituality. He says, "The Celtic spiritual pathways are a multifaceted emerald that gleams with the light of an intelligent and sentient creation. To make of ourselves a lamp in the sometimes dark world, we must ally ourselves with this holy light of creation. The Celtic way is steeped in this process of alliance. It is a brightly woven cloak of wisdom and experience that is one of the precious antidotes to the spiritual pain of our era. What visionary Irish poet and mystic William Butler Yeats called an outworn heart in a time outworn." And I absolutely love this quote because people have always called me an old soul, and I felt like I've never belonged in this world, the modern world, and that's exactly what Yeats means here. So how do we heal this disconnect? Well, according to an old therapeutic saying in Gestalt psychology, the healing of a wound must come from the blood of the wound itself. In other words, the healing of an emotional or psycho-spiritual wound is brought about precisely by entering into its terrain, not by avoiding it. And Frank states that this healing can come from opening ourselves up to our ancestors' guidance and wisdom, as well as entering into a full and loving embrace of the mother and acknowledging the healing power of the primal land. So the eclipse just happened, and oh my goodness, it was one of the most magical things I have ever experienced in my entire life. So I am up here on the bridge at one of my local parks, and it was the perfect spot to view the eclipse. And actually I had 3 strangers come up and ask if they could share the bridge with me, and I said of course, and we all watched it together. And I thought I was the only magical weirdo up here on the bridge, but there was this guy who during the eclipse played this like 70s techno music, and he had his hands in the air, and I was like, yes, us weirdos are uniting during this eclipse. And it was so cool. And actually, I didn't tell you yet, but before the eclipse, like even on my drive over here, I got this like really strong feeling of anxiety. Not that something bad was gonna happen, but just this overwhelm of power. And I get that a lot because I'm an empath, so I could feel the energy building up of this eclipse. And then as soon as it was done occurring, it was like I was completely washed of that energy. Like it was no longer an overwhelm. It was just like a moment, and it was just so cool. So it got dark, almost like dusk, I would say, kind of like it does on a storm, but kind of not. I would say if I had to pick between a rainstorm and dusk, I would say it was more like dusk. It was that kind of dark, and the birds here were going crazy. They were just singing and chirping and talking to each other, probably saying, what the heck is going on? It is midday. Why is it getting dark? But I wish my camera would have picked it up. Now I did get some footage of a time lapse of it, but you can't even tell that it gets dark, unfortunately. And I was so bummed, but I didn't have glasses, so I didn't look at the sun. But I think actually that might have been in my favor, because I was just experiencing the atmosphere, the darkness, and the sounds of everything. And I don't know, it just felt more magical to me than actually just staring at the sun with those glasses and seeing the moon go over. Just experiencing everything that was around me in nature and how they were dealing with this weird thing that was going on. It was so cool. But if you got some really good pictures, definitely show them to me. I always have my email down in the description, so send me an email with pictures or videos that you took, because I would love to see it, especially since my video didn't turn out good, and of course I didn't have the glasses. So yeah, I would love to see that. But now, without further ado, let's get back to this book review. So according to Frank, a good way to heal an emotional wound or psycho-spiritual wound is through setting your root. Now, he suggests setting aside a space specifically for consecrating a brief retreat that will focus on setting your root, and this is going to be a place without distraction. Then after you've found a space, whether it be in your home or in nature, set aside a whole day, dawn to dusk, to sit in this space without electronics, caffeine, cigarettes if you smoke, no alcohol, and if you're medically able to fast, don't have any food either. Essentially, it's just you and your mind for the whole entire day. Frank states that when we remove ourselves from the unnatural rhythms of the world, the more ancient rhythm of our earth selves returns. And this is nature's healing power on us and within us because we are part of nature. Then once you've freed your mind and made room, the questions will start coming for some, and so do the fears, the doubts, and the worries. For instance, you might start thinking about all the things in your house that need cleaned, like the dishes and the laundry, and I need to go run errands and all of these things. But instead, just sit there and allow yourself to feel these things. Think of these things as a cold wind and turn your mind towards the warm, sweet, sheltering spirit of silence. Frank says, stay with your questions and think of this act as warming your earth. It is like the sun thawing the frosty ground. Chew on the questions, the doubts, and the fears. Feel them to be what they really are. The necessary magnetism of moistness and warmth to activate the seeds of wakefulness within you. Where a moist chill meets warmth, the luminous of mist is born. The mist is the threshold, the guardian of the in-between, where vision is received. Within the mist of liminal time and space, we are able to plant the seeds of a new life. Then, when you're ready to set your route, stand and face the 4 directions, starting with the east, the direction of the new rising sun. Move in a clockwise fashion and announce out loud what you are setting your route in. For example, perhaps you are setting your route in healing or getting rid of a self-absorbed materialistic life and are now setting your route in a life of kindness and service to others, etc. Now, another important step is to share your commitment with your family of blood and spirit. Ask for their support in assisting you to live a life rooted in this new energy. Frank also notes that once you have performed this day-long practice, you can expand it into a full weekend, or perhaps if you are at a significant crossroads in your life, you would be served by doing this practice for an entire week. Furthermore, similar to this practice, Frank also includes several other practices and ways of becoming Enshi, which actually means becoming the peace in Gaelic. Some of these include hill walking, making ablutions in a stream, sleeping at ancient burial places of your actual ancestors, etc. He goes into detail of all of these things in his book, so if you've never heard of them or if you're curious about them, definitely pick this book up. But in addition to this plethora of information and Frank delving into his personal experience with Celtic spirituality, I'd have to say this has been my favorite read thus far regarding Celtic spirituality, one that I resonated with on such a deep level. And for that reason alone, I rate this book a 5 stars. So if you are interested in Celtic spirituality for your own practice, or you're just curious and want to learn more, this is a great book to pick up. And like I said, I will leave a link to where you can purchase it down in the description, which leaves us to our next book for April. And that is going to be Cottage Witchery by Ellen Dugan. And I actually just got done here recently reading her book called Autumn Equinox about Mabon and absolutely loved it. So I definitely wanted to read this one and thought it would be perfect for the springtime. So if you're interested in picking this up and reading it along with me, I'll also leave a link to this one down in the description. But thank you all so much for watching this video and sharing the experience of the solar eclipse with me. I had a lot of fun reading this book and really delving into it and being out here in nature with you all. So thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, friends. Bye.